Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and thank you all for joining us. My name is Fran Compar. I'm the Director of Digital Learning for Wilton. I am joined by my colleague, Kim Zima, who is our Safe Climate Coordinator. And together we worked on putting together these workshops, these nights on a very important topic in the area of technology. We actually partnered with Bark for Families, which is a vendor that we are working with in terms of our, some of our filtering. This workshop is actually designed to provide you information on trends and look for and strategies for helping your children navigate what's now a really messy online presence. We're really very happy to be joined by Renee Abrams. Renee is a school safety manager and a trainer for Bark for Families, and she has a presentation where she's going to take us through a report as well as a variety of apps and then some resources. And we're going to end the night with having some questions and answers. So you'll see at the bottom, there's a place where you can add questions. Kim and I will monitor if we need to be able to answer things, we will. Otherwise, we will post them to Renee at the end of the presentation. Okay, so thank you for being with us, Renee.
Thank you so much for having me, and parents who have tuned in, thank you so much for carving out some time to join us this evening. Again, I'm Renee Abrams. I'm the School Safety Manager with Bark Technologies. My favorite part and the biggest part of my role here at Bark is talking to parents like you. We have so much data at our disposal, and it really is helpful to give parents a glimpse into sort of what our kids are dealing with in digital spaces. And more importantly, how we can have those important conversations with them and ultimately how we can keep them safer in these places where they're spending so much of their time. So a few things I hope to leave you here tonight. Certainly some resources to help further your own understanding, and also some conversation starters and just some more information about some of these popular apps. Some you've heard of, right? The Snapchats and the TikToks and the Instagrams, but some maybe you haven't heard of, Yik Yak and Hoop. We're going to get into all of it. So I understand tonight I'm talking to our secondary parents. I talked to the parents of sort of the younger kids last night. So I'm looking forward to digging into a little bit more this evening. Now, I do want to say, when I talk to parents of middle schoolers and high schoolers, sometimes I get this feedback that's like, I think the ship has sailed, right? We've done all we can do. At this point, they're kind of set in their ways. They're set in, how they're going to use tech. Or, I get parents telling me it's a constant struggle. It's a fight. It's a headache. My hope here is that tonight you'll hear some things and maybe be introduced to some new resources that can help make that process a little easier, even with your tweens and teens. So, to get started, I would like to tell you a little bit about Bark Technologies. This way you know how we have all of this data, right? We make tech that keeps kids safer online. We are most known for our Bark for Families app. Now, this is an app that parents download and through communication with your kids and some other tech links we have set up, you are going to set up Bark on all of their accounts, all of their phones, the 30 plus social media platforms and applications, places we know our kids are super busy. Now, the thing with Bark is that this is not a keystroke logger. We're not going to send you an alert for, or I should say a log of all of your child's activity online. The goal here is really to help them have some privacy, but with a safety net, right? So what we will do is anytime we encounter something that's inappropriate or something that is concerning, we will send you an alert to your phone, an app, a text, an email, whatever you decided. And the things we alert to most often, specifically with tweens and teens, cyberbullying for sure, sexual content, drugs and alcohol, and lately body image issues and anxiety, and unfortunately, more and more alerts for suicidal ideation and depression. So I will talk a bit more at the end and kind of throughout about how monitoring like BART helps your families. But like I said, I wanted to let you know how we have all of this data available. So BARC currently helps to keep more than 6 million children safer online. And because of that, well, we have more than 3 billion points of data to really paint a really good picture about how our kids are interacting online. And so I think that data is pretty powerful. And so I'd like to start our presentation this evening with that. I'm going to go ahead and pull up our 2021 our 2021 annual report. Every single year, we analyze all of the data and we put it together in a nice little report, which I'll definitely link you to. And it, again, just gives you a really good picture of how we can better protect kids. Let's start scrolling through this a bit. By the way, every link that I show here tonight, I will provide to you in a follow-up email. So no need to sort of scurry to copy all of this down. I do encourage you to check out this report in its entirety. And keep in mind the 2022 report will be out in just a few weeks. So let's start with sexual content. Let's get right into it. So our report found that more than 68% of tweens and 90% of teens encountered nudity or content of a sexual nature. Now, depending on sort of which watch group you ask, the numbers vary, but not that much. Most of the studies that are conducted show us that between 40 and 45% of the content on the internet is pornographic. That's a lot of sexual content to sort of cross our fingers and hope that our kids don't encounter it. Especially with our tween and teen groups, I always like to start here because it's really important to note it's not so much our kids that are out here looking for the very worst of the worst on the internet, but pornography that depicts violence against women is so prevalent, especially in these spaces where our kids are gathering. So what can we do? Well, of course, we can have conversations with them about what you do when you encounter some of these things. With your children being the age they are, there's a high likelihood they already have encountered some of these things, right? So just having those ongoing conversations, and also, of course, using some digital monitoring tools so that you can, be in the loop when something like this comes up. We are going to talk a little bit more about where, a lot of sexual content is encountered by our kids. I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. Drugs and alcohol. Our studies found that more than 75% of tweens and more than 93% of teens engaged in conversations surrounding drugs and alcohol. And keep in mind, we're not just talking about sort of street drugs, right? A lot of prescription drugs, vaping is included in this. Again, these are just the conversations that whether or not our children are engaging in them actively, these are the conversations that are going on around them in their peer groups. And the numbers show very, very frequently. I'll scroll down to bullying. And it's worth a pause. I don't think it's a surprise to any of us, whether we're teachers, administrators, parents. No surprise to any of us, these numbers, that more than 72% of tweens and 85% of teens experienced bullying as a bully, victim, or witness. So those numbers might not be surprising. I do encourage all of us on this call to keep in mind how different cyberbullying is from any bullying that we might have experienced or witnessed probably when we were in school. Even if you're an older millennial, such as myself, all of this is brand new, right? This is a whole new digital age. So familiarizing yourself with what cyberbullying looks like on Instagram, what cyberbullying might look like on Snapchat, is all very helpful, again, in having those conversations. As I go through our presentation, I will show you some specific resources, to quickly get up to speed on the new types of cyberbullying. Doxing is a type of cyberbullying, if you haven't heard of that. Sextortion is a very popular type of cyberbullying, as is exclusion. So again, I'll show you where you can go to sort of familiarize yourself with what it looks like and what it will look like when your kids are experiencing it. I am going to go ahead and scroll down a bit to, well, let me not skip over depression. 32% of tweens and 56% of teens engaged in conversations about depression. I think this is a really good place to talk about sort of how our kids talk about depression. And this does lean a little bit more into the need for digital monitoring tools. Now, of course, the Bark lady is going to tell you that you need digital monitoring tools. Our goal here, though, is that we hope you use Bark, but really just understand the necessity of having some tech that can help you to sort of decipher the things your kids might be running into, whether it's Bark or another solution out there. Depression's a place where this really comes into play. So even if you're a parent who sort of takes your child's phone from time to time, which great job, it is your phone. But even if you're a parent who does that, if our kids are in crisis, sometimes it's difficult for us to know. And of course, we don't want to go through every message they have either. Having a tech solution can alert you. Here's a specific example. Our tech kept alerting to the names Deb and Dan over and over again, from everything from anxiety to severe depression, all the way up to suicidal ideation. And our annotation team is seeing these alerts coming in. Well, it turns out it's a coded way that our kids were talking about depression. Way before the humans here, whose full-time job it is to know the changes in kids speak, way before we realized it, our tech, our machine learning algorithm was able to alert parents, was able to alert schools who might be using this, that there was danger and get those kids help. A step further, when we talk about sort of slang and emojis and the importance of being able to detect those, training pasta recipes, finishing your shampoo and conditioner at the same time. Who knew these were coded ways that our kids were talking about suicide? Again, the importance of, having tech that can alert you to danger is so important, especially when so many of our teens and tweens are engaged in these conversations. The numbers simply don't lie. Okay, now I am going to skip down to the bottom, surely, but again, I encourage you to come back and please check this out. I want to skip down to the part of our report that talks about where we found a lot of this concerning content. Again, I will say these are numbers from 2021. So I do expect this to change in the coming weeks. I expect you'll see a lot of TikTok on here and some higher spots. I think you'll see Hoop and Yik Yak and some others, but let's just scroll through. It's still a really good snapshot. So places where we found severe sexual content. Number one is Kik. And what's surprising there is that I know a lot of parents aren't even aware of what Kik is. So I'll come back to that one in a bit. As I scroll through, I just want you to notice that we're starting to see some repeat offenders, okay? Discord's on pretty much all of the list. Snapchat's on pretty much all of the list. That Facebook, I think that probably won't be here moving forward. But again, you'll see Instagram, WhatsApp, Discord, TikTok, all hotbeds. Now, what can we do? I do want to make sure we talk about the top 3 apps our kids are using, and then we'll go from there, okay? There are lots of different things that you can put in place. Again, you'll hear me say conversation starters probably 20 more times during this presentation, so just be prepared. But whether it's conversation starters or tech that helps you monitor, there are a lot of things we can put in place. But I do want to flip over to my presentation for a moment, because what we are going to get into is sort of some of the top apps that our kids are using and some things I think that you should be aware of that'll be really helpful for you. Um, Number one is YouTube. Teen, tween, other, YouTube is the number one usage or the number one app in terms of usage for our kids. Um, there was a really great survey that the Pew Research Institute did recently, and they surveyed about 2,400 kids and asked them about their own habits. And these are kids between the ages of 11 and 18. So ask them about their own habits. And do you know that more than half of them said that they are always on YouTube? So, I mean, it really is a very popular app and a place where I think sometimes parents uh, might think it's very safe. And for the most part, again, our kids are not doing nefarious things on here. But anytime there's an app where we know kids are super attracted to, we know it's a place they gather, we have to sort of switch our hats, right? So let's start with YouTube. A wonderful place for learning, a wonderful place for connection. But one of the things that YouTube is flooded with is pornography. It's also flooded with predatory behavior. Why? Well, because this is where our kids are gathering. So this is where those entities will gather as well. One of the number one things you can do really on all these apps, but really with YouTube, we talk about getting in front of what our kids are encountering. Follow who your kids are following. And I'm not just talking about their friends or their teammates or, neighbors. I mean those influencers. Regardless of how small your child is, I even said this to the elementary folks last night. I promise you, they have some influencers that they are watching on the regular. Following them can help you, again, get in front of some of the things that could be dangerous or concerning. Remember last school year, we had all of those crazy challenges? Well, we got reports back from some parents who were following the same influencers their kids were following on YouTube and other platforms. And they were writing into us saying, hey, have you guys heard about these challenges? Just one example of the benefit of following who your kids are following. Okay, so number one is YouTube. Number two, in terms of usage, probably not a big surprise, is TikTok. I will say that if your kids are in any way interested in TikTok, I'd be surprised if they're not on it in some way, shape, or form. But I would encourage you to get on TikTok as well. It's so important for us to understand the appeal and the lure before we can talk to our kids about best practices for safety and wellness. So if you're not on TikTok, I'd encourage you to get on it. I think it'll be a delight. My TikTok personally is filled with dancing babies, cooking videos, wardrobe hacks. That's kind of my corner of TikTok. And so when I open up the app, my For You page shows me anyone who's posted things like that, because that's what TikTok knows I like to watch. And their whole goal is what? To keep me on the app as long as possible. So the For You page is sort of their claim to fame. Now, let's switch our hats for a moment and think as a predator or a bad actor. How do you think they curate their For You page? Whatever it is they're interested in, TikTok knows it can show it to them in high volume. One of the very first and easiest steps you can do to keep kids safer on TikTok is check out those settings. Let's make sure that they're not appearing on randoms, just on random people's For You page. Let's make sure that their settings are as private as possible, which typically I'll tell you, this is not a typical fight that you're going to get in your household. I know some of these things are, but this is not going to be one of them. Changing those settings really doesn't interfere with the way your kids probably want to use TikTok and are using TikTok with their own peer groups. So keep that in mind. Now, some good stuff about TikTok. They recently introduced digital well-being settings this year, which is great for our kids, great for us as adults. I think the more public outcry that we have, whether it's from parents like you, from educators, digital safety experts, I think you've probably noticed in the news, whether it's TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram, they're really being taken to task to make things safer, considering these platforms were created with no one's well-being in mind. So check out those digital well-being settings, everything from, sort of forcing you to take a break from TikTok to managing the way you interact. These are just really good things to talk to your kids about, but also to model yourself. Two more things just to be aware of on TikTok: how predators, I should say, interact with our kids. There's a whole article on the Bark blog, which is one of the resources I'm going to show you. It's literally called "How Predators Interact with Children on TikTok." So I would certainly encourage you to check that out. Fran, I'll make sure I send that in my resource links as well this time. But these are one of those things that's just a conversation, a consistent conversation. If your kids are constantly on TikTok, then we have to constantly be having these conversations. And also, of course, having some sort of tool in place that helps alert us when they are encountering this behavior. The thing about predators is, and I'll just speak overarchingly, not just about TikTok, but the thing about predators is they are professionals at getting our kids to trust them, right? They're professionals at building relationships with children and not being caught or being suspected, right? So because they have that, they have very specific language they use when they are grooming children. There are even specific stages. And so if you're sort of in the business that Bark is in, right? We can see this. We can see it very clearly. Like, oh, this is the risk assessment stage. Oh, this is the, this is the trust building stage. Our kids can't, though. And so just something to keep in mind, specifically when we're talking about predatory behavior, is not just that you've, taught your kids stranger danger, or they know not to accept friend requests from somewhere else. They are up against professionals at really lowering their guard. So it's important to have some digital tools in place to let you know, hey, something's going on here that you should take a look at. Okay, I'll get off that. I'll step down from that for just a moment. Now let's talk about usage. So I already talked about YouTube is number one, TikTok is number two. Tied for number three is Snapchat and Instagram. So I do want to start with Snapchat. Okay, now parents always ask our Bark colleagues at the end of a parent presentation, just tell me what apps we should definitely say no to. Tell me the apps that are safe. And we usually shy away from that because the truth is it changes all the time. And number two, it really is a decision for you and your home. We would love to say no, no, no to Snapchat, never, right? Because it has disappearing messages, because of the geolocation default settings. These are red flags for us. But the thing is, Snapchat, like I said, is tied for number three with daily usage when we talk about our teens and tweens. So the conversation there, I believe, is much less should my kids be able to use Snapchat, and more how do I keep them as safe as possible if and when they use Snapchat. Even if it's not on their phones, keep in mind they have friends. They have friends who have phones. It's such a big part of kid culture. More than likely, your children are in some way affected by, impacted by, and in contact with Snapchat. So let's dig in. Most Snapchat's claim to fame is the disappearing messages. They were the first to do it. Anytime we have disappearing messages, even with our brightest, most mature kids, it entices them to post things, to say things, to behave in ways that they normally wouldn't. That's why some of the things you'll see on Snapchat, after this, I encourage you to Google teenage Snapchat. And unfortunately, you'll probably see a ton of articles, whether it's, someone losing a scholarship, or whether it's someone, facing charges even for certain things. You don't see that so much on Instagram, because why? like I said, they're tied for usage, right? Snapchat and Instagram, but the behavior on Snapchat tends to be so much more impulsive. Um, those disappearing messages, it's just important to talk to kids about the fact that they don't disappear. When Snapchat first came out, remember the iPhone had screen grab, but it didn't have screen recording at the time. So anytime someone took a screenshot, well, you still do get an alert that says, hey, Kim took a screenshot of my Snapchat. And then I can deal with that however I need to, even though she's already taken the screenshot. I can't, delete it. But now I can just screen record. There's no built in thing that says, okay, in Snapchat that says this can't happen. So again, kids know this if they take a moment to think about it. And the purpose of having the conversations continuously is making them continuously think about it. So that when that impulse hits, hopefully they'll be less likely to do something that could be very detrimental. Okay, so let's move past the disappearing messages. Snapchat does have a family center. Like I said, if you're a Snapchat household, your kids are really into it, check out the family center. This is something that I can't say it's the best thing in the world. It is something that Snapchat has been forced to create, again, due to public outcry from parents like yourselves. So there is at least an extra layer of guidance and oversight that I want to make sure no one on this call is missing out on. Okay. Snap Maps and Ghost Mode. When I talk to parents, I would say it's about a 50-50 split between have you ever heard of Snap Maps? And no, I've never heard of this at all. It is a default setting when your child is using Snapchat. And what it does is it just shows their exact location to, anyone. It shows their exact location to anyone that they're connected with on Snapchat. Ghost mode takes away that geolocation feature. And it's another one, sort of like what I mentioned with TikTok before. This is not going to be a big fight in your home. If you decide to turn off Snap Maps and request that your child goes to ghost mode, it does not interfere typically with the way kids are using Snapchat with their friends, but it is a really big step in, again, helping to prevent randos from, contacting them, befriending them, and possibly going any further. So the number one thing I would do with Snapchat is make sure your kids are in ghost mode. Two other things that we should really know about Snapchat. It has its own language. Okay. So this is another place where if you're sort of spot checking the phone, hey, send noodles. I mean, it's cute, it's tongue in cheek, but you can probably decipher that one, right? Hey, send nudes. But what about, all of the other coded languages, the whole chain of emojis that means, everything from cute and fun to, dangerous and concerning. So just something to keep in mind with Snapchat. It is a hotbed for drug activity as well. Again, these disappearing messages, not only children posting about their drug use, but also a hotbed of activity for drug sales as well. So the thing with Snapchat is, of course, Bark and other companies, we can monitor this, right? But only to a certain degree. Snapchat really is locked down and one of those apps where you're going to have to go in and set the parental controls that are in place. If you know your children are using Snapchat, you're really going to have to make it a point to have these continuous conversations. And again, follow who they're following, so you can sort of stay in the know. Okay. The last one I want to talk about, rounding out our top three positions, our fourth app, Instagram. Instagram is the last app standing where parents and kids alike are probably, there's a high likelihood that we're all on Instagram, right? Just as Facebook has died to the youth, I anticipate Instagram at some point will too. But how has Instagram gotten their second breath or their second wind in the light of TikTok? Well, they've gone to Reels. They've gone to these short videos and promoting those. And everything on Instagram now is Reels. So if you see your kids scrolling the same way they would be scrolling on TikTok, uh, yeah, that's how Instagram has sort of gotten its second wind with our youth. Most kids, and this is from different surveys of our partners who are youth advocates and in digital safety. We have one partner in particular who loves to ask, specifically eighth grade girls, how many of them have a Finsta, a fake Instagram account. And time again, we find that a large majority of students sampled, obviously without their parents present, but students sampled tell us that they have multiple Instagram accounts. Now, good news, bad news here. I'll tell you the bad news first. There is no tech out there. There's no tech out there that's going to be able to tell you, hey, Renee has 6 different Instagram accounts. That's a little bit beyond the bounds of technology. For the accounts that you do know about, certainly BARC can monitor those and alert you when we find things that are concerning or otherwise inappropriate. But this is really one of those spaces where, with Instagram particularly, and hopefully it's easier because you're probably on Instagram. Follow the people your kids are following. I know, broken record, and then also really tune in to sort of their patterns of behavior. Instagram's a hot spot for body image or body shaming and also cyberbullying, right? And so when you're tuned in, maybe you're not following their best friends, but when you're sort of tuned in regularly to their activity, you can see have they are they on the app less than they normally are? Are they on it more than they normally are? Just some things to be on the lookout for. And I'll actually have a whole list of things to be on the lookout for, so we'll skip past that. Things that kids tell us make them uncomfortable on Instagram. Creepy comments, that is number one. And random people direct messaging them, sliding into their DMs, right? This is a fun way to flirt, right? But it's also something that could pose some danger to a lot of our kids. What can you do there? Parental controls. And I think this is a good place to talk specifically about parental controls. I'll tell you specifically with this age group, when we talk about tweens and teens, I find that parents are less or more hesitant, I should say, to really go through the process of putting parental controls in place. The idea is, our kids are very, very tech savvy. They're super smart. They're going to get around these controls. Okay. I would encourage you to still take the time to do it anyway. Parental controls not only, puts up a barrier between our kids and inappropriate and obscene content, but it does a few other things as well. If I go back to the predatory behavior I was speaking of, predators on the other side of being caught. And I will say we have the privilege to work with great organizations like like NCMEC, the National Institute for Missing and Exploited Children, the Police Foundation, the list goes on and on. And from them, we get these really important pieces of data. And that is predators, when they are interviewed on the other side of being caught, there's a series of questions that they're typically asked. One of them is, what is it that makes you back off? The average predator has like 150 victims before they're caught. So that's a lot of kids. There are a lot of kids out there who can use their laptops, in their bedroom. There are a lot of kids out there who have no time restrictions and no, screen restrictions on their tablets and phones. Tons of kids out there who have no restrictions over, where they can even play their video games. Maybe they just play them in their bedroom. Predators ask those questions. They're trying to find out not only how closely kids are monitored digitally, this is outside of BARC, they're trying to figure out how closely kids are monitored in real life. How involved are your parents in your digital life? Because that involvement, the slightest level of parental involvement in the digital life, means that they have a higher likelihood of being caught, either found out by the parents or that the child is going to tell the parents. So how is it all of this wrapped back around to parental controls? What a very simple first step forward to involvement in your child's digital life. Again, predators themselves have told us that, a kid just saying, like, oh, yes, my mom is always putting these parental controls on my phone, I have to take them off. Even that is enough to make a predator back off in that risk assessment stage, because keep in mind there are so many, unfortunately, so many other kids out there who that's not going to be a barrier for them. So, okay, we'll hop off the parental control soapbox for a moment. I want to talk a little bit about resources to further your understanding. And as I do that, I'm going to talk about a few of the apps that appeared on our 12 most dangerous apps for kids. I know this is a very, sort of in your face headline, but the reason we put this article out is because we realized, one, looking at our data and seeing the places where our kids were really encountering some extreme things, we also realized that these were apps that a lot of our parents, after polling and surveying different groups, knew nothing about at all. So we're just looking at this quick little screen grab right here. And I know Kick is one of the ones that parents aren't too aware of. I'll go into depth there. Hoop is another one. Hoop is really gaining in popularity. Unfortunately, Hoop is also referred to as Tinder for teens. So yeah, we'll come back to that. Omegle. Omegle is one that it's okay. Please don't beat yourself up if you have never heard of this. Omegle is one of those sneaky, gross apps that we also wish we could put on the no list. It falls into the same category with some other apps where, due to public outcry, due to a just onslaught of police, drug, sexual predation, all of this activity, several times Omegle has been forced to, or not forced to, but removed from the Google Play Store and removed from the App Store. To this day, they keep being removed, and you'll see them added back in, removed. So what have they done? Well, they've made their platform available on the web. So you can access Omegle without ever downloading an app. They have a total web interface that kids can use. What is Omegle? Omegle, like a lot of these apps that you've probably never heard of, is a completely anonymous chat app. There are videos, and again, a lot of things are looped into this category of anonymous apps, with anonymous video and photo sharing and geolocation. Those kind of seem to be the check boxes for dangerous apps, right? So Omegle, that is my spiel about that. But I do want to go over to the article in question, the 12 most dangerous apps, and show you our Bark blog. We have a whole dedicated team who sifts through, wow, not just all of the data, but also Parenting in a Tech World, which is a Facebook group with more than 250,000 parents, sifts through all of this to weekly get a snapshot of what parents are dealing with, what's new out there with kids in tech, and then they quickly turn around various blog posts. So the three resources I'm going to show you, Bark, Protect Young Eyes, Common Sense Media, I encourage you to bookmark these. I want you to bookmark these, and I want you to go to them, whether it's weekly. I think weekly is a fair ask, but whatever cadence works for you, and just clock in and get some information. So quickly, I'm going to scroll through these 12 most dangerous apps. We've talked about Snapchat. By the way, these are in no order, okay? We've talked about Snapchat. We've talked about Instagram. I'm going to loop Discord in with some of these other apps. So we'll come back to that. But let's talk about Yik Yak. Yik Yak is completely anonymous. Again, telltale sign of a dangerous app. When I say completely anonymous, though, I mean no usernames, no profiles, no photos, no nothing. Okay, it is completely anonymous, and it bears repeating that any time anonymity is the driving force for why something is cool, it typically does prompt our kids to behave in more impulsive ways, to post and say things that they normally would not say. What we've seen with Yik Yak, especially with tweens and teens, wow, rumors, they just spread like wildfire within this app. Um, when we don't, when no one knows who we are or what we're saying, and it can't be traced back to us, this goes back to that impulsivity and saying things that we really sometimes don't mean. But this is also a place where cyberbullying is a big issue because, I can have 15 girls, sort of chime in on Yik Yak, and there's no accountability, there's no community moderation. It's just all around sort of a giant no. We have a whole article called Yik Yak, the dangerous chatting app, and here's why it says it's back. Remember when I was talking about Omegle, and because of public outcry, et cetera, it was removed? Yik Yak's another one. Yik Yak is has been removed for hate speech, obscenity, inciting violence, predatory behavior. The list goes on and on. If you Google it, there are even a few lawsuits and some major issues within whole school districts here in the U.S. With Yik Yak. So I'd encourage you to check this out. What can we do? We can talk to our kids about the dangers here, but also why Yik Yak poses those dangers. Here's what I think is really cool about having teens and tweens. It's not so much what you do and don't do this, and this is why it's dangerous, because obviously they know everything. They know everything, right? But when we talk to them about how certain apps and tech in general is manipulating them, how how tech and certain apps are pulling them into dangerous spaces without their consent, that is typically when they listen. And Yik Yak is one of those. The platform is built to be a place that sort of draws you in. And now I'm going to scroll down a bit. It draws you in, and now you are in this pool of people that, within a 5-mile radius, everyone knows exactly where you are. You have no idea who you're speaking with. It's just a really, really messy place. Yeah, I could have just said that. Yik Yak is a messy, messy place. And so when we explain to especially teens and tweens why these messy apps are built and how they manipulate and draw them in, typically those are easier conversations. I'm going to scooch to another resource, Protect Young Eyes. The reason I'm here is because I wanted to just show you the information that they have available about Hoop. Keep in mind, whether we're talking about Hoop or Discord or Roblox, the list goes on and on. If you go to Protect Young Eyes and you search for the app, they're going to give you a complete breakdown of not only what the app is, but when I scroll down, what parents need to know about Hoop. I encourage you to please come check this out. As I told you, not only did Hoop appear on our 12 most dangerous apps, but it is gaining in popularity. For those of you who maybe are not familiar with Tinder, it is, it's been out for a while. It's a very popular adult dating app. And you just kind of swipe through people a lot. You're not reading profiles necessarily. You're not trying to match, based on education and values. You're just looking at a photo and you're swiping left or right. Well, with Hoop, again, they call this Tinder for teens. A lot of them are using it for this, and it is a hotbed of sexual content. I'm going to go back to, again, having some digital tools in place to, have some sort of safety net, or at least be alerted when this is the activity that is going on, but also having these conversations before your kids encounter some of these things on Hoop. What we find from a lot of our parent advocate groups, and we're out here interviewing kids and talking with them week by week. It's not that our kids get on these apps to get into this kind of trouble, for lack of a better word. They don't know what awaits them when they get there. So you having this knowledge and sort of knowing can help guide, maybe, is this the best space for you? Is this where you want to be? Again, I know those conversations with teens and tweens are a little different, but information can only help you. It can only help you before they're on the apps. It can only help you after, and if they've encountered something that's dangerous or inappropriate. So just to scroll through so you can see, these are all very, very, you don't have to read it, but these are all very, very quick little paragraphs, bite size, that anyone could fit into, into their day and certainly their week. I also I don't have, forgive me for a moment, folks. I'm just going to search for this because I do think it's really important to show you Common Sense Media. We're not necessarily going to talk about the Roblox right now, but I'll hop in here and go to Hoop just so you can see. I'm one of those people who can't type and talk at the same time, so bear with me. Okay, I'm going to go to Hoop just so you can see what they have available for you. This is a very new app. So as you can see, there aren't that many reviews yet. As kids and as parents figure out what the dangers are here, it's going to build up. But the greatest thing, what I like the most about Common Sense Media, is that you'll always be able to see what kids say and what parents say. So a lot of this is parents on here, of course, stating their views, but I love when I get to see what kids say about an app. Just to give you a really good example, I'm going to go to Snapchat just because I know it's going to have a little bit more data and a better illustration of this. Okay, so we are going to go to Snapchat, and you can see here that kids, there are 462 reviews for what kids say. So if we were to go into that, you'll see kids just basically stating their case. Say that you're a household that says, you know what, no Snapchat here. Well, the cool thing about Common Sense Media is you can come on here, kind of see what kids have said about it, what the lure is, what the appeal is, and it's going to help you better have conversations with your own children. So again, I am going to post a link to these 3 resources, but I do want you to know that you can come here and find help and guidance for talking to your kids about these apps and anything else that might come up that you're just like, what is that? Now, what we're looking at on the screen right now is the documentary landing page for Childhood 2.0. I'm not sure how many of you on this call answered our survey, but collectively, I think about half and half of the people who answered said that they'd seen Childhood 2.0. So for those of you who have, if maybe you haven't seen this page, I encourage you to come back to it. For those of you who haven't, watch this movie. Watch it first by yourselves and then determine if it's something that you feel comfortable watching with your kids. What I love the most is it's not just digital safety experts, talking at you. There's child psychologists, there are law enforcement professionals, but more importantly, there are parents and tweens and teens talking about all of the apps I've just talked about, talking about all of the issues that kids are facing online, whether that's cyberbullying, predation, sexting. They really get into it. And it's really cool to see parents in one room talking about, how things are going down in their household with tech, and kids in the other room talking about the same thing, and obviously they're having two separate conversations, right? So I encourage you, please watch this movie. It's free. You can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it on Apple TV, Prime. As you can see, the list goes on. One of the reasons I came to this page is because uh, after the movie, we have put together some things that are going to be really helpful for this group. One of them is the discussion guide. And let me see if I can pop over to that. Okay, one of them is the discussion guide. We'll just select it here. And keep in mind that even if you decide that the movie isn't something you want to sit down and watch as a whole family, there might be some parts of it that you're not totally comfortable going through. And I understand that. These discussion questions are invaluable. They were created with child psychologists, digital media experts, and child, or I should say, student advisors as well. So these are questions that have been put in place not to be asked all at once, but something to sort of weave into your regular conversations that you're having. What did you think what did you think your parents wouldn't understand when you were a teenager? Again, these are questions that child psychologists and kids have told us really help them to kind of open up and have conversations about what's going on today in tech. Now, another thing that is in here is questions for parents to ask kids. Everything from what privacy means to, having kids weigh in on your tech habits. Are you addicted to your phone, mom? Are you on your phone at all through dinner? These are some things to talk about as a family. Remember, with our older kids, especially, having those conversations about how even we are susceptible to the tech that was not created with our well-being in mind is really important, and again, allows them to come to you sooner.
Renee, I apologize. There's about
Yeah.
5 minutes left in the presentation.
Oh gosh. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me honest. Well, here's what I am going to do. I've already showed you the web page, so you'll be able to come back to that. Last two things I want to show you. Parenting in a Tech World group. Folks, please come join this Facebook group. There are 250 plus parents in here. It is a private group, so that's why I haven't scrolled through too much. But whether it's, my child is sexting, what now? You're going to find some parents on here who are going through that same thing and who can weigh in. Other cool thing, you can post anonymous questions on here and get feedback from experts and parents alike. Last thing I'm going to leave you with is this family tech contract. And in the interest of time, I'm going to tell you the two reasons you should use this tech contract. One, kids need to know what the consequences are for a digital mistake before they make that mistake. It makes them more likely to come to you. And two, having this tech contract gives you an event to sort of revise and review all of your family's tech rules in one place. So you can whip this out monthly, or as often as you need to review those things. And folks, I didn't even talk to you about Bark. So what I'm going to do is make sure I send you a quick video that kind of explains it. But keep in mind that all of the apps that we have talked about here today, the Bark app is going to be able to help you to get alerts. If your child's on Instagram and they're being cyberbullied, maybe they want to come to you and they don't know how to start that conversation. The Bark app lets you go start that conversation. Maybe there's some inappropriate photos going on and, Google Docs, which happens, by the way. You want those alerts and you want to be able to help your kids through this. So thank you for your time. I thank you, Fran, for jumping in. I didn't set my timer. We've just been flying in through this, but any questions that come up, folks, please, I'll share my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me directly. I would love to answer your questions.
So before we get to the very last part, which is that survey that we're going to have everybody answer, I just wanted to let everybody know that all of the things that Renee went through tonight, which is a lot, and it's a lot to process, as she was saying. There are a lot of new apps that I certainly hadn't even heard of. that I will put it all together as a resource page, both on the website, and I will also send out a blast on School Messenger as a message tomorrow with information, with the resources, where to find it on the website, as well as an invitation for anybody that wants the actual app for your family. Renee hasn't gotten into this yet, but they are providing us a 20% discount for families. It is I believe it's $100 a year, but you can get it for $80 for as many
Yes.
devices and as many children as you have. If it is something that you are interested in, please join us next week. We will have an onboarding workshop for any parent that decides they want it and they need help in actually setting it up. That'll be next Wednesday, and all the information will be in that email. Thank you very much, Renee, for joining us and providing the information. And please take a few minutes. You can use this QR code to get into a survey that will be very helpful to us as we're developing a series of workshops. This beginning the kickoff for it, and there will be others in January with Scott Driscoll. Wilton Youth Council will be also hosting, and there will be one also at our Middlebrook school. So all across the next 3 or 4 months, we are really very tuned to this being a huge issue that we want to be able to provide all the information. One question was if you can provide the information that is on slide number 12. If you can show that once
Yes.
more after this, that would be helpful.
Will do. And I'll also, this is actually just a screen grab from bark.us. So I'll make sure that I include that as well in the follow-up, folks. But this really is it, just cut and dry. Monitor, manage, filter, and then get location alerts.
And again, this came as a result of the fact that we in the district provide filtering for Google Suite and, a variety of like email, et cetera, but district provided only. Anything that students then use on their personal email or obviously on a lot of these social media sites, we do not monitor. And this was a way of, partnering with a vendor that actually works with us already on some of these filters and provides a service also to parents. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you again, Renee.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Bye.